Second marriages fail at a 2/3 rate. Third marriages fail at a 3/4 rate. The reaction to that is not don't get married. The reaction to that is, okay, if so many people middle-aged make bad decisions when it comes to love, how could I be one of the people who gets it right? And that is absolutely a skill that one can learn.
Okay, this is a good one. I mean, if you're dating after divorce and you're like, what is even going on here? This is the right podcast for you today, because I'm going to be speaking to Evan Marc Katz, and he became the world's first dating and relationship coach in 2003, specializing in helping smart, successful women find love. And that's what you are. He's the author of 4 books, and his podcast, which is called Love U, like the letter U, University, has 3 million downloads. His blog has 35 million readers. He's funny. He's honest. He's got a great take on dating. I mean, he's been featured in the Today Show, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Bethany of, Bethany Frankel fame. She worked with him. I mean, he's just such a treat, and I'm so glad you're going to get to know him. He's got 4 books. He's got programs. If you are looking for love after divorce, you have come to the right episode. Let's meet Evan. Evan Marc Katz, everyone. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for being with us.
I'm flattered to be here. You've had some great company in the past. I'm just glad to join the roster.
Well, no surprise that you know so many of them. I mean, this is like a pool of interesting, fabulous people you surround yourself with.
I would give you more credit for being a mom who's created a popular divorce podcast that could attract such good talent. I
Thank
think
you.
the credit goes to you.
It has been a labor of love and evolution on this podcast, as you know, because you have your own.
This is true. I started mine in 2016, called the Love You podcast. Love You is my course, and but mine's has been my profession for 22 years. This is a passion, a post-divorce passion project for you, is helping other women.
So what's really cool about you is that you are like the OG relationship coach. Like, you started this back before this was a thing to even start. Like, how did you fall into this line of work?
I, necessity is the mother of invention. I don't want to give myself too much credit. I was in Hollywood. I was 30. I was a failed screenwriter who came really, really close to success, but never quite achieved it. And I realized I didn't want to be the 40-year-old guy trying to sell scripts. And so I got a job answering phones at an online dating company while I put myself through film school. And after 9 months of doing that, I realized, oh my God, I got to write a book about this. And I wrote one of the first books about online dating called I Can't Believe I'm Buying This Book. That's when online dating was embarrassing. I can't believe I'm buying this book.
It was so embarrassing. Why was it so embarrassing?
Because it was the vestige of the old personal ads in the newspaper, single white male seeks whatever. And so I was an early adopter. Like, I did it. I was a writer living in LA. I didn't have that many friends. I needed to create a social life from scratch. So Match.com and Matchmaker and Yahoo Personals and JDate. And I did all of those things. And I didn't realize that I had a skill. And so after my book came out, it did better than anything I ever did in Hollywood. And I dropped out of film school and I became the dating guy. But I had no qualifications. I just said, all right, let's just see where this goes. And I was 31 years old. Now I'm 50 and 53 this summer. So,
It's
yeah,
interesting
this has
how
been
life
a lifelong
yeah,
pursuit.
life just puts you where you need to be. It's so funny. Like, I had no plans on being in the role that I'm in either, Evan, but yet here we are.
Yeah, and I think if you choose to take it seriously, and I chose to take this seriously, eventually you step into the role that you claim for yourself. Like, when I was 31, I called myself America's leading dating expert because no one had ever done that before. It wasn't necessarily true. It was just a thing I declared. And then hopefully I sort of grew into that because I had this blog that got, 35 million readers just by writing the answers to the questions that everybody wanted to know. How could you tell if he's falling in love with you? And when is it time to have sex with him? And how do you know if he wants to commit to you? And it was a made up job that became a real job. And now there's thousands of people doing my job. So it sounds to me like it was a good proof of concept.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I think it's evergreen. People are always going to want to find love, and love is not always everlasting. And then they're going to want to find it again. And with age comes wisdom and more confidence, but also sometimes less confidence. So it's just like the wheel that keeps on turning. It's, you're helping people get the thing that they want most biologically, physiologically. I mean,
Yeah, I think you said something I want to key on, whether whether you want to go in this direction, but we find love and then we lose love and then we want to find it again. And my goal is to help people make really good decisions that have the potential to last. Uh, Second marriages fail at a 2/3 rate. Third marriages fail at a 3/4 rate. The reaction to that is not don't get married. The reaction to that is, okay, if so many people middle age make bad decisions when it comes to love, how could I be one of the people who gets it right?
be the
And
exception.
that is absolutely a skill that one can learn.
Absolutely, it can be a skill, and what I see with, I'm meeting people where they're at in the sense of, like, the first marriage didn't work, and now, at least the people who come to me or the ones who seem more self-aware and ready to right those wrongs and connect the therapy dots, they don't wanna make the same mistake twice, and they're desperate to understand why they've repeated certain patterns or, dated the people they've dated. There's the people who say, like, "I only attract assholes," and it's like, "Well, you're the common denominator there, so let's take a look at that," right?
Right? I've a saying, you don't attract, you accept.
Oof.
Uh, the I attract assholes like you're some sort of asshole magnet built inside your chest. No, you are attracted to assholes. You choose them, you double down on them even when you know they're assholes, but you don't attract them against your will. Assholes exist in the rest of the universe, and other people are like, that guy's an asshole. So you might have a really high tolerance for assholes, but you don't attract them unwittingly.
No, I know, and that's part of the beautiful work. It's like, yeah, I went my whole life saying, "I don't have daddy issues." I mean, I'm long story short, estranged from my father since I'm 12, abandonment issues up the wazoo, but it wasn't until my divorce and looking back at all of the types of relationships I was in that my issues presented themselves in the type of love I was accepting, not necessarily, I wasn't out there swinging from a pole, not that there's anything wrong with that either. It was more like I had the same type and not physically, but emotionally in the sense that I had to beg for the love and
Right.
accept breadcrumbs. And when people look back at that and can connect the dots, it's like, yeah, but then we have all of these women post divorce, the majority of them in my age range, early 40s, many of them in your age range, early 50s, not trying to like put anyone's age on blast. He looks great for his age, doesn't he? But we really are aware now and we're confident and we want to do all the right things when it comes to looking for love. It just feels so scary at this age.
And that's two really great points. Number one, about the fear. Fear is the biggest problem. It's not the solution. People retrench from fear and they say, I'm going to just focus on raising the kids until they're 18.
Mhm,
And you've gone from 45 to 55 in that time or something like that. And there's a great cost to putting your love on the shelf for a long period of time.
mhm.
The other thing I want to call attention to is the idea. I want to be very validating of anybody who's gone through therapy and figured out their daddy issues and why they accept less. Coaching is forwards looking, not backwards looking.
Mhm,
Therapy is backwards looking. Who messed me up? What
mhm.
environment in which did I grow up that allowed me to become this way, to be wired this way? Coaching is about, okay, you know all that.
Mhm.
What are you going to do now? What different choices and decisions and actions are you going to make to build a bright new future? Because you got 35 years ahead of you. That's a
Right.
long time to be alone or get it right.
I'm so
So,
glad that you made that, you clarified that for people because when we have new client inquiries, one of our questionnaire questions is, "Are you already in therapy?" Because we're not here to do that work. We wanna know that you're doing it now or you've done it to sort of understand who you are now and why so that we can take those next steps with you into a more productive future.
I think they work in concert with each other. A good coach can't fix someone who doesn't have any measure of awareness.
Mhm,
Um, Also, most therapists aren't dating coaches; they're not specialists in one thing.
mhm,
They obviously have their merits and their training, but it's mostly an act of discovery, putting together all these puzzle pieces from one's past. That doesn't tell you too much about modern dating dynamics. And so I never try to provide therapy to people. It's out of my skill set. I do think a lot of therapists think they're dating coaches too, though.
oh, do they?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of social media coaches think they're experts in all sorts of things they're not experts on. So, thanks social media for that.
I really have to have a measure of humility and humor around this. Told you I made up this job, 20 something years ago with no qualifications. I can't blame anybody else for trying to say, "Hey, I could do that.
Yeah.
I have a take. I have a
Yeah.
phone." Um, so
Comes
if
from a
they're
good
helping
place.
people, and people are enjoying it, it's actually making a tangible difference in their life, then great.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is it? It seems like I rewatched Sex in the City recently. And I remember watching it when I was in high school, and these women were older than me. So in the show, they were at least at the time. And I'm watching it thinking, wow, like dating, like look at all the things they're doing. And now I've rewatched it where I'm in an age in my life where I'm older than them when they were in the show. And it's like, what are these idiots? Like, what were they doing? Like, what? It just was so classically like what not to do. And as a
It's why
kid,
it's why I don't watch those shows.
right, and as a kid, I'm watching it thinking like, "Wow, how cool," but why is it that we get to our 40s, and even though there's all these different ways to date, it's so much more complicated?
Uh, are you talking specifically about anything Sex and the City related, or are you talking
No,
about
just
why it's more complicated to date when you're in your 40s?
why it's more complicated to date when you're in your 40s. I mean, we're so much smarter than we were, yet it seems so much harder.
I think ignorance is bliss. I think if you're a 25-year-old kid and you've been dating the same person for 3 years and they're attractive and they seem to have everything on paper, then the next step is to get married and the next step is to have kids, and at no point do you second guess what you know. You
Mm,
don't know what you don't know because 'cause you're only 25.
mhm,
Think back, if you're 41 or whatever, think back to what you were like when you were 25 and the difference between 25 and, say, 35, and the difference between 35 and 41. So people who are young don't know what they don't know, so they're doing the best they can, but it is a measure of ignorance and innocence. And then when you're older, you've learned a lot about what doesn't work, but you don't always know what does work. So you've got a different amount of baggage than a kid who's kind of coming right out of the gate, innocent and excited about the possibilities. Uh, and people have a really hard time now. There's more evidence than ever, but people have a really hard time distinguishing the difference between chemistry and compatibility, and
mhm.
they're not remotely the same.
Yeah, no. So we've learned, right? I mean, and there's this thing that comes up, I think, for a lot of the people that I work with that they'll say, you know, I was attracted to, I'm attracted to the ones that I know I shouldn't settle down with. Or, the chemistry versus compatibility one. Like you're going to have the best sex with someone you should have no business being with type of mindset.
Sure.
Why is
Yeah, I mean, attraction is generally, and this is more going into our psychology, but attraction is generally what you're familiar with is what you're attracted to.
hmm
Right. So it's familiarity.
hmm
So if you come from a household where mom was a controlling narcissist and dad was unavailable, right? And you become the placater, the people pleaser, the person who bends over backwards to make everybody happy, but never really listen to your emotions. Is it terribly surprising that you think that's what love looks like as an adult and you recreate that dynamic? You don't
This is
have to
why
be a
we go to therapy,
therapist.
people. Yep.
Right, yeah, you don't have to be a therapist to put those pieces together.
hmm
So the question is, what do you do now? And you almost have to do the opposite of what you did before, and that is challenging and that is foreign. So the crux of this conversation, because when people hear it, they hear this from experts all the time. He's telling me to settle. He's telling me to go out with someone I'm not attracted to, right? That's the leap that people take.
No,
So
please don't draw that conclusion from
no, but let's frame it in a way that I think is palatable. No one who gives good advice is telling you to go out with someone you're not attracted to because it's a non-starter. Everybody knows that attraction is important. Everybody knows you can't have a good marriage without a good sex life. So there's no one who's telling you to do that. I think the important part is to understand that chemistry, a baseline of chemistry, is a prerequisite for a relationship. It is not in and of itself a relationship. So people tend to stay together because of that feeling. A lot of talk about anxious avoidant, right? There's a chemistry with anxious avoidant, but that's the familiarity of, I know this guy is emotionally unavailable. I know I'm walking on eggshells. I know I can't relax and let down my guard. I know I can't bring up the difficult conversation because he may blow up and leave me. And normalizing that dynamic where real love is the absence of that. Real love is safe. Real love is breathing easy and, the way you love your kids. That's what romantic love should feel like too.
Hmm.
It is not the uneasy butterflies. And once we get over the idea that that's what it looks like, we can make better choices moving forward.
Absolutely. There's this other thing that I hear from, I think it's just like something people say, although I've heard it from people who I think are just really scared to put themselves out there again. But, they'll say, like, I'm in my 40s. I'm too set in my ways. It's going to be impossible to find someone. And I'm like, are you set in your ways or do you have high standards?
These are all very like buzzword things that serve to divide us. So high standards for what? I would ask that question to anybody who says they have high standards. High standards for what?
I don't know.
Well, that's the question. If someone's saying, I've got high standards, I'm not going to settle. What is it that your high standards are for? What are the metrics you're using that you declare you have high standards on?
Mm-hmm.
Most people's high standards are height, weight, education, income, religion, politics, money.
Right. The good on paper stuff.
Right. But they'll be in a situationship for 3 years with a guy who's verbally abusive.
Right.
So is that high standards?
Right. No,
Not
no, and you're right, and
positive.
I think there's a big epiphany that divorced women have at least that like, "Oh, okay, I married the good on paper guy, and he checked all those boxes, good family, good job, great education, but he sucked, he treated me like shit, and now, I don't care if it's bad on paper as long as I'm treated well."
Right, and we don't want people to leap to, it's gonna be bad on paper. I'm just saying reverse the order.
Mhm,
Make sure you find a guy who gives you very at a baseline, character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, right? As non-negotiables, everything else is actually negotiable.
mhm,
5'8" versus 5'9" is negotiable, right? 100 versus $125,000 is negotiable. Like, these are all negotiable things.
mhm,
Character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, non-negotiable.
yeah,
And people do it the other way.
yeah,
And then they wonder why my relationship's so bad. I meet these guys, they seem so great. At the beginning, everything's wonderful. Well, yeah, that's the audition process. You're the CEO, he's the intern. Of course he's going to give you a great effort at the beginning. He's not going to show you why he is a toxic narcissist in the first 2 weeks.
oh my god, that's really great, I never thought of it that way, he's the intern. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is people will say, when the honeymoon wears off, who is that person really? But I do think that's the most important season of a relationship when, like, you're done with the courting phase and sex 12 times a day and flowers for no reason, and now it's real life. And how does that make you feel? Not how much does this person worship you and kiss the ground that you walk on, but do you feel respected despite the challenges? Do you feel respected and safe despite the nature of the relationship shifting into more of a comfortable space? And that's where people start to have
And that's
conflict.
why second and third marriages fail at such higher rates.
Mm,
People tell themselves the story, I'm experienced. I know what I'm looking for. What they do is overcorrect. If they were in a relationship where the guy had no money, they seek money. If they were in a relationship where there's no passion, they seek passion. Then they overcorrect, right? And marry that person at the peak of their excitement and attraction. Oh, we've been dating for 6 months. We moved in together. We're engaged. We eloped to Italy. We did something without the kids. So now you're married in less than a year. Is it at all surprising that while you're still in peak honeymoon phase, that maybe those marriages turn out to be a mistake?
mm,
And that maybe older people who swear, oh my God, I've got less time, I have to move faster, would be better served in waiting 2, 3 years to get married in their 40s and 50s? The only people who have to rush are people in their late 30s who want to have kids. No one else has to rush.
right. Right. Well, yeah. I think women after divorce rush for a number of reasons. One of them being well intentioned, but completely misaligned with reality. It's that they feel that they've taken this sense of family away from their children. And by recreating that, then their kids can't say they came from a broken home when in reality, what the children really need most after a divorce is that consistent connection to the parent, not feeling like they have to share them with somebody else. And I hold space for people like that because it's a scary world to be in when you think my children need family, family's best for a child, and now, here you are dating for your child instead of for yourself. Um all right. So speaking of buzzwords, because we've and buzz terms that we've already thrown out there a bunch, this idea of the high value woman and the value man, this is trending all over social media, but it's probably pretty subjective. If you are someone who's listening to this is like, I'm only attracting the high value person from now on, what does that look like to you?
I think this goes back to our other conversation about the definition of high value, right? If you connote high value to education, money, and height, and we could acknowledge tall might be more attractive than short, rich is more attractive than poor, smart is more attractive than stupid. We're not, no one's arguing with those things. But if you connote high value to those things, you're going to stay in the exact same place,
Mm,
right? High value men are men of integrity, where their word matches their deed. Where when he says, I want to see you, it means I want to see you. And I'm picking you up at 8 means I'm picking you up at 8. And I'm thinking of a long term relationship means I'm thinking of a long term relationship,
mhm.
right? To me, that's what high value means. It's the quality of a person as a human being, right? How they show up, not just uh, for you in the beginning of the relationship when everybody's on their best behavior, but how do they treat their children? How do they treat their employees? How do they treat the server? We're really talking about issues of character,
Yes,
and
character
you
is
can't
everything.
divorce high value from character. When we place high value on status and money, well, look at our famous billionaires. Do you think there's a happy Mrs. Elon Musk anywhere? A happy Mrs. Steve Jobs anywhere? There's no such thing,
Mhm.
right? So we could put everything on intelligence and money, and that doesn't leave us anywhere. So I think a high value partner is someone who you would be proud to be with because he's the only person who's ever made you feel safe, heard, and understood. The only person who never lets you down, right? It's we'll go to the daddy issues. It's the person you wanted as a dad.
Yeah, it 1,000% is. It really is so. I mean, my whole connection with my past to where I am now is very indicative of that, and that's for another conversation, but yes, it's the love that you did not receive as a child, absolutely. Instead of realizing, "Oh my god, I replicated the same exact thing," it's like, how can we move away from this? So, I think there are many, many people who have moved themselves out of the mindset of, like, charming, wealthy, attractive, that's at the top of the list, and they want more of this feeling of safety and security and trust now that they're learning to retrust again. So how do you attract that kind of high value man?
Go back to something we said at the top of the conversation about attracting versus choosing.
Mm,
Right? So let's just say that 90% of men, this is a made up number, there's no science behind this. Let's just say that most women's observation about what a shit show it is out there is true.
mhm,
Right? I'm not going to argue with anybody's life experience. So you go on Bumble and it's a train wreck. I'll acknowledge the train wreck as a dating coach for smart, successful women. Okay, your experience is real. You're an Ivy League school, right? Ivy League schools take 5 to 10% of their applicants. Do you think you should be much more selective than an Ivy League school? And of course, the answer to that is no.
mhm,
Okay. So let's agree that 90% of men are worthless. There's a database of 10% of men who have husband potential somewhere in there.
mhm,
Choose one from the 10%.
mhm,
That doesn't sound so intimidating or impossible anymore,
mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's easy in theory, right? But to put it into practice, if you have not done the work of, there's these feelings of self-doubt and self-confidence and unworthiness that follow a woman through probably her childhood into a bad marriage into now divorce. So that is really the importance of like that is the first piece is recognizing your worth before you can attract this high value man. But I do believe also that you value men, the one that we're talking about, the integrity, the loyalty, the consistency, the character, the values that align with yours, they're gonna help you feel more secure and more deserving of that kind of love, don't you think?
Yeah, that's the attached thing. If you're an anxious attachment style, choose a guy who's secure attachment style, who knows how to have intimate relationships and value the fact that he has an intimate relationship. Not, oh my God, this guy's so boring. He calls
Right,
me after every date and says, I want to see you again.
right, right, yeah.
Right. I think one of the things we haven't talked about yet, and I don't want to get too stuck in it because it's easy to get stuck here, is online dating. If you're insecure, online dating triggers all of those insecurities.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody has the same thing, the same observation about being single. Everybody I want doesn't want me.
Mhm,
Everybody who wants me, I don't want.
mhm,
And that is the definition of dating. We all think it's a unique affliction. Everybody I want doesn't want me. Everybody who wants me, I don't want.
mhm,
And so we're just trying to say, hey, if those seem like two completely non-overlapping circles, let's turn that into a Venn diagram where there's 10% overlap
mhm,
between the guys you want and the guys who want you.
mhm.
And somewhere in that is success. And there's a skill set to online dating. There's a
Right.
skill set to first dates. There's a skill set to dating multiple people. There's a skill set to dealing with sex. And I think a lot of people come from a place of insecurity. And so my whole work is, you mentioned confidence. The entire first month of my coaching program is in confidence. Before we go on any date, we need to restore a measure of confidence. What would a confident woman do in this situation?
Mhm.
Right? And most of us go back to our childhood wounds and fears and act like like an insecure person. And
Right,
it's not very effective, even if it comes naturally.
right. And in that confidence piece, I imagine you're working a client that's in your program away from the idea of like, "Oh, I hope they like me," to, "I hope they're good enough for me," because that's I mean, we're all just like little princesses, damsels in distress waiting to be chosen because fairy tales have put this idea in our head, but it really should be, "Do I even want this prince? Is he a prince by my standards?"
I think there's some contradictory information out there, and it's tough for women to make sense of it through no fault of your own, because you're on the internet and there's a million influencers and there's a million podcasters and they tell you things that sound like 90% the same, but the differences are kind of important.
Mhm.
So yes, my central metaphor I told you before the call, you're the CEO of your love life, right? Men are interns applying for a job with you, right? You never have to remind the intern to come into the office. They
Mhm.
should be coming in early and staying late. That's what qualifies
A
them
hot
for the
cup of
job.
coffee, no
It's
less.
not the resume. It's not how charming he was in his Brooks Brothers suit in the interview. It is, how does this guy do the job, and does he continue to do the job to get hired? So if you see yourself as the CEO, it's a great place to start. But being the CEO does not mean doing all the work for the man. And that's how women slip into the masculine. And suddenly, yes, you want to be the chooser, not right. You want to be able to choose the guy who works the hardest for the job, but that does not mean you texting him, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend? I haven't seen you in 3 days. I made reservations for us. Have you taken your profile down?" That's when you that's when that turns into masculine energy, insecure, controlling,
Mm,
rather than realizing I'm the CEO. I don't have to do anything.
right,
If a guy wants to see me, he knows where I am. If he
right,
wants to text me, he knows where I am. If he wants to make plans this weekend, he knows where I am.
right.
And women have been compensating for men and doing men's jobs for way too long.
Wow, yes, and I imagine your program definitely addresses a lot of this too, because, I actually see this with, and I've talked about this so many times just in my personal life with friends. I have clients who are such successful women, amazing, celebrated, well-respected women in their industries, and they date these men. And it's like they're the masculine energy, they're doing it all, and then they're with someone who expects that from them and also treats them like shit. Like, why is this a thing?
It it comes with the multiple hats that women have to wear, which is really difficult. Men don't have to do the same thing, right? If you're going to be in your masculine at work, do, achieve, 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 control, 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 right? And then you're the primary parent, and there's a lot of doing and controlling there, to let go of control in a romantic relationship and just trust if this guy likes me, he's gonna wanna see me again. I don't have to do his work for him.
Yeah.
I don't have to twist his arm. This is at will. If you want to get with me, call, plan, pay, follow up after the date, offer to take down your profile, make the first move. Very, very basic guy stuff that we've been doing for thousands of years,
Mm-hmm.
right? And women are compensating for, passive, lazy men. And it's sort of the way parents compensate for their kids, and they helicopter their kids. And then the word that their kids can't launch. Stop doing so much.
Right. Wow. And the overthinking too. The overthinking, I'll say if you're a divorcing parent and you are now you're alone with your kids, you have a lot more stress than you used to. There literally is no room for overthinking. I realized this very quickly when I started dating my now husband. When I would be like, "Oh my god," normally I would have been like, he didn't text back, or I'm like, reading the text 12 different ways to see if like I missed something, or like what tone could he have sent that. You don't have time for it anymore, which is kind of liberating in itself. Like I feel for me, someone who was always anxiously attached and taking much less than she needed from people, or allowing worse treatment than I should have. It was like, I don't have time for that anymore. Like, if you're gonna show up and you align with my life, great. If you don't, I'm sorry. Like, I don't have time to like force this to work.
Yeah, and I think that because we're all coming from a place of insecurity, because everybody's disposable when you're dating online, it's hard to feel really secure when everybody's on to the next. Women do the same thing as men. That's the hard thing that I sometimes have to point out to my clients. I got a client the other day, and she's telling me the story. She's got this really nice guy. He wants to be her boyfriend. He's ready to take down her profile. She's not ready to commit to this guy yet. She wants to keep her options open.
Ooh,
And I said, I totally understand that. You shouldn't want you're the CEO. You shouldn't just be bullied into being someone's girlfriend. At the same time, could you understand why a guy might have gone out with you on 5 dates and still be active online? You're doing the exact same thing.
wow, yeah.
And that was like,
Late last week. Right. But do you think if it's been 5 dates, let's say for this person, and she's still like, nah, I don't know, I'm gonna keep my options open. Is that a good indication that like this one's probably not for you?
um, I wouldn't want to say in any sort of blanket way that that's the case, because everybody here who works with me anyway, and probably who works with you, is trying to dial in a new way of dating, right?
Mhm.
And that's the challenge. In the past, and this is true, if you stop and think about it, when you're wildly attracted to someone, what's the first thing that stopped happening? You cease critical thinking.
Oh yeah, no,
The
you're
feeling the
exit
feeling is
stage
so
right.
strong that you don't even bother to think, "Is this the train I wanna get on?" You just hop on the train, and then you wake up 8 months later, "What the hell did I just do?" So, when you see someone clearly not blinded by chemistry, it is more of a choice than a non-choice, and people love to not have to make a choice. No, but it feels so right. All the people who are listening right now, think about the person you've had the most chemistry with in your entire life. Think about the 3 people you had the most chemistry with in your entire life. Are you with them right now?
Probably the most fucked up relationships you've had. No,
You're
but
not you're definitely not with them right now, so that's how I know that thing, that feeling that we think is the feeling that we call being in love isn't actually love.
no, I almost don't miss that beginning stage when I was with my now husband, where I literally felt like I was levitating, like floating through time, just like this. But there was also this really like, I mean, palpable feeling in my stomach, and it wasn't butterflies. It was more just like not knowing. I didn't know where this was going. I didn't know what was gonna happen. Were we gonna land and be in the same place? Like, and I don't miss that at all. Like, as someone who was addicted to butterflies and new beginnings for a long time and bounced from one relationship to the other, the day that I realized like, "Oh my god, this is what it is and it's safe." I mean, I feel like that in itself healed a whole part of me, but that beginning stage of butterflies, like, it gives me the ick now because it's so, like, not rooted in reality.
And you don't control, you don't c you're really basically out of control. You're ceding control to a feeling,
Mhm.
and that feeling is, if we traced it, it's pleasure centers of your brain, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. That's what brain chemistry is. Chemistry It's the same pleasure centers of the brain that light up when you do coke or meth. So we
Nauseating,
have all the
honestly.
same highs and the same lows that go with it. And so back to my client, I try not to give definitive advice. I say go on one day at a time, see how you feel, right? And somewhere between I should just know and you know what? Maybe I'll take down my profile and give this guy a shot. And if it doesn't work out in a couple months, I can start all over.
Mhm.
They're both viable options. You'll never know if a guy is boyfriend material until you try him as boyfriend
Mhm.
material. But choosing a boyfriend is not the same as choosing a husband.
Right.
Taking down your profile is not signing on the dotted line for life. So no matter what choice she makes as the CEO, she can't make a bad choice.
Right. Right. I love that. Well, we get a lot of questions about not just like when is the right time to start dating after divorce, which I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I think it's different for everybody, but the sex piece is very, because here you have people who are coming out of marriages where there probably wasn't a lot of love and intimacy for a while, right? Like that's out the window. So now you have people like coming out and they're just like, give it to me, anyone, anywhere, and they're not worried about, like, the repercussions emotionally of how that might feel, or they find themselves in this situation of incredible chemistry, and they're just, like, ready to go at it. Do you give advice on when is the right time to take off your pants and when you should probably keep them on like, how long you should keep them on?
Oh yes, I mean, I feel very, very strongly about this. Not that everybody should agree with me or has to do what I say, but I've come up with something that I think is pretty solid and foolproof. Uh, some people make up a number of dates or a number of weeks or a number of months. Steve Harvey had like some 3 month thing. That's nonsense. Um, it's certainly not a 3 date thing. Also nonsense. I think because you can't tell the difference between a guy who's trying to get laid and a guy who wants to be your boyfriend, and men can't tell the difference, that's the other thing. They act the same. They're both gonna be generous and charming and
Tell you what you wanna
aggressive.
hear, yeah.
Yeah, so you really can't tell the difference between whether he's interested in a relationship or interested in sex for that very reason alone. Since you can't tell the difference and men can't always tell the difference, it's probably best not to have sex with anybody who's not your boyfriend, right? But when should you choose someone to be your boyfriend? When should you commit to someone? Take your profile down, say, "Hey, let's give this relationship a shot."
Mhm,
For me, that's ballpark 4 to 6 weeks ish,
mhm.
right? So we correlate this to once he and you have gone out on made up 8 dates over 5 weeks or something, you should have enough information about each other to say, "Hey, I like you. You like me. We seem to want the same things. We both want to get remarried one day. Let's take our profiles down, give this a shot." Now it's really safe to have sex because after you have sex with your boyfriend, you don't have to wonder about whether he's going to call you the next day.
Right,
So there's no such thing as a situationship. There's no such thing as that post-sex anxiety. What's going to happen staring at your phone? You're already in a safe relationship.
right.
So to me, that doesn't have much of a downside is waiting until he's your boyfriend.
Right. Now, let's say you met someone you really liked and you had too many drinks and oops, you didn't wait until it was like official.
Sure.
Is there still hope for the relationship?
Yes, there's hope for the relationship because 1/3 of relationships start that way.
Mhm. That's a number
Right,
I didn't
so
know
so we can't say there's no and this is usually the pushback. This would be a good hour-long debate, but that's usually the pushback is, "But with my ex, we hopped into bed on the first date, and then we were together for 10 years." It is not whether 2 responsible adults could hop into bed and still want the same things. It's that if you're dating from a place of power and intention, you do not want to, in general, sleep with a total stranger and then keep your fingers crossed that he turns out to commit and turns out to be a good guy. We want to get the order right. And if you're comfortable sleeping with someone and not knowing and looking at him on Bumble and staring at your text messages, waiting for him if you're comfortable with that, there's no slut shaming, there's no value judgment on it. My terminology is always about effective and ineffective. If you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. Most women I work with are kind of tired of sleeping with guys and waiting for them to turn into boyfriends.
Mm,
And so it seems to me like there's a really easy solution. Stop sleeping with guys who aren't your boyfriend.
yes. Yep. I mean, listen, I haven't dated since, I don't know, it's been 8 or 9 years now. It's been a long time. And even then, I was a very different person than I am now. I couldn't imagine having to put myself back out there, right? It's scary, but it is also liberating and empowering when you realize that, like you said, you are the CEO. You can be the CEO. Nobody's taking that job away from you except for yourself. So there have been so many incredible nuggets in this conversation. I love it. You have authored many books.
Yes, I have.
I mean, this is the guy, you guys. This is the dating coach. And you also have a program coming up. You are running a monthly workshop,
Yeah, my signature program's called Love You. That's what I usually do when
like
I'm
Love
coaching.
University for those listening.
Yeah, it's just it's just Love You, and it's a 6-month program taking women from confidence to commitment, group coaching, private coaching. But the new thing that I'm offering is called the Extraordinary Love Series. It's a monthly uh, webinar and live Q&A for smart, successful women who want to attract high value men. My definition of high value men. If you go to Extraordinary Love Series, you can sign up for absolutely free. And I have a gift for anybody who is listening. If you go to evanmarckatz.com/moving on, you can take the quiz. Are you wasting time on the wrong men? The answer undoubtedly is yes. But you'll take the quiz and discover how many different kinds of wrong men you've been wasting your time on. And I'll send you free dating and relationship advice until you drop. Before we go, I just want to ask you, Michelle, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from New York, Long Island, if you couldn't tell.
I could. That's why I wanted to know. I was going to play Jewish geography.
Let's do it offline though. But wait, I wanted to say one more thing before we go. To everybody listening, if you're listening to this, it's because the headline or the title of this podcast uh, appealed to you because you're probably trying to find love again. And I want you to know if you do it right, and listen, I'm speaking from experience, but also as someone who has worked really, really hard to get it right. It's worth it. Like it really is worth it to put yourself back out there again. As scary as it may seem, you'll know essentially when it's the right time. You'll know it's the right time when you're not just trying to like compete with your ex or replicate some sort of family dynamic you think your kids need. When you feel valuable and ready to put yourself back out there again, that's the right time. Give Evan a follow, a listen, a watch. I mean, you could find him anywhere. He's fascinating. Bethany Frankel for my Roni girls loves him. So I trust what she trusts. Makeup, dating advice, all of it. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next time on the Moving On Method. Please check out the links to find your way to Evan and have a lovely day.